Welcome back to Dental Fire. Don't just finance your practice, pay it off. Let's talk about 13 key points you need to understand when it's time to buy or build your practice. So in no particular order, here we go. Number one, your emotions. Keep your emotions in check. It's easy to fall in love with the idea of how successful you're going to be. And there'll be plenty of people who will tell you how fantastically easy it'll be. Don't listen to them. You need to take your emotions out of it. You need to be pragmatic. I read an article a few years back that talked about successful entrepreneurs and small business owners. One strong correlation they found with successful startups was that they were critical and negative when it came to evaluating their opportunities. That doesn't mean you have to be completely negative about everything, but when it comes to evaluating your opportunities as a dentist, take emotions out. Yes, it's okay to imagine how successful it could be, but also imagine what can go wrong. I'm a big fan of having a practice that will be successful even if it underperforms. Number two is your location. This is a very big, important key point, so listen up. It's all about understanding the market you're going into. I'm a big fan of filling demand instead of creating it. Now, a problem a lot of dentists have is they think that wherever they go, demand will follow. For example, Southern California is a beautiful place to live. A lot of dentists will say, I want to live there. And as a dentist, I should be able to make a pretty good living there and make it work. The only problem is there's lots of other dentists who have had the same thought. Now, I'm not saying you can't live in Southern California. You sure can. But you need to look at the market first. See what opportunities are there, what demand is actually there. Get a good idea of what you could do. Another big part of location is your demographics. I cannot overstate this enough. If your report only has 12 zip codes in it, buy maybe 2 reports. This is money that will not be wasted. I cannot emphasize enough how important your location will be. Number 3 is thinking like a corporation. I read an article 15 years ago in Dental Economics. The title was something like The End of the Solo Practitioner, and how the big corporations they have so much economy of scale, and they'll be able to, there's no way a small business owner can compete with them. It's total bullshit. When you look at why people choose a practice, why do they? Look at the reviews online. They'll say things like, the doctor listens to me. The staff is so kind. I felt like they understood my needs. Everyone seemed to get along. It was a happy environment. The doctor sure was nice. Every now and again, you'll see something about the technology or the facility being very nice. But in general, if your facility is good enough, all that really matters is taking care of the patient. And as a small business owner, you have such greater control over this than the corporations do. Now, I'm sure you take good care of your patients as an associate, but there's something different about you owning a practice. And when you know that the time and energy you're investing into that patient is going to pay dividends into an asset that you own, it's easier to find the energy to be positive through it all. And also, you have greater control how everyone in the office is going to treat your patients. Number 4 is lease negotiations. When you're looking for a place to rent, be represented. Commercial real estate, to a degree, is kind of like the residential real estate. The landlord is going to pay a commission to fill that space no matter who brings it to him. Now, the commercial real estate agent that represents him wants all that commission. It doesn't cost you anything to be represented, to have your own commercial realtor. So make sure you get your own commercial realtor, be represented, and make sure that he or she is not only showing you their properties. Number 5 is getting too big of a space. In general, when your space is too big, it's going to cost you more to build that space out. It's going to cost you more in your lease payments. Your loan payment's going to be higher. It just raises the fixed cost of everything. Sure, you might be able to find a good location with a good rate, but if it's way under market value, eventually those rates are going to go up when you renegotiate in 5 years. An important point to remember when it comes to the size of the space and being represented in your lease negotiations is that it sticks around for a long time. Even after you pay off your debt in 10 years, which is going to be an exciting time for you, after the debt is paid off, there's a cockroach that sticks around, and that's your lease payments. If you got too big of a space from the beginning, you're married to that thing for a long time. Sure, you could buy the facility and there's other things you can do, but for now, just remember that too big of a space and not being represented equals big problems. Number 6 is not getting ripped off when you're building out a space or improving an existing practice. This more goes for those who are starting, but when you buy a practice too, there might be some renovations you want to make. Just make sure you get multiple bids. I would say at least 3 bids. And there's plenty of areas to save when it comes to building out a practice. Some of the bigger items are like not spending too much on your 12 o'clock cabinetry or your side cabinets and the size of your operatories. But this has its own videos, and I've written a book on this. Number 7 is mixing your business models. Typical scenario is someone wanting to do a great cosmetic fee-for-service practice and build out a space bigger than they need. Let me give you an example of what I mean with this. Let's say you're very passionate about clinical excellence. You've taken all the Spear Institute courses, your skills are top-notch, and you want to create that beautiful fee-for-service practice. You've been working as an associate at a big corporation, and you know you can do it better, and you can. But be careful, because their philosophy has a way of sneaking into your brain. What's more common than not is people will get a space a little bigger than they need, and they build it out ready for maybe 6 ops. And maybe they got a 3,300 square foot place. They build it out. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to getting multiple bids with contractors, and they spend too much on the place. And then they open. But there's no butts in the chair. So what do? They grab more insurances. Pretty soon, they're so busy that they need to expand. So they go into more debt. They build out a couple more rooms, hire a couple more employees, raise their break-even point. And before you know it, this poor doctor is in a high-volume, low-margin, high-stress practice, just like that big corporation he was working for. Number 8 is trusting people. I don't want to come off as a cynic. I love people. But understand human nature. Everyone is trying to provide for their family. And when there's news that a dentist is buying or building a practice, there's a lot of money flowing during that process. And plenty of people want to stick their hands into it to be able to feed their babies. Nothing wrong with this. It's just human nature. But be careful. Do not give your trust out easily. When it comes to vendors, landlords, contractors, financial institutions, just be careful. Don't trust people right away. And when you open up your practice, you'll also use your understanding of human nature to know how to deal with patients. You can love people, but still understand and have low expectations on what a human will do. Now there's another person to watch out for. And this is the kind, good person who's doing everything he can to be honest and help you, but does not know what he or she's doing. I've lost more money in my life to good people who don't know what they're doing versus sharks. Because when you see sharks in the water, you get out of the water. Number 9 is hiring. The biggest thing for knowing how to handle your staff is getting your systems in place, having a nice operations manual. You need to understand how to do every single job in your business. If you don't, how will you follow up with them? This is also related to trusting people. I made a pretty foolish mistake early on. I had my operation manuals in place. I had my systems ready to go. I was looking to hire a good office manager. I wanted someone who can really help me get to where I needed to be. I interviewed this gal who was the office manager for a well-known cosmetic dentist in town. And the last couple of years, she said she was up in Canada doing marketing consulting for dentists. So I called up the former employer and I asked him what he thought of her. He gave me a great review. He said, "Oh, I think she would be fantastic. And she can do some good things for your practice." So I hired her. This girl was a complete fraud. She never once called the insurance company to research. She never once sent claims off to insurance companies. She didn't even know how to run the credit card machine. When she ran the machine, she was paying people instead of taking payment from them. In other words, if the patient owed us $100 and gave us their credit card, she would run the credit card and we would put money into the patient's bank. Needless to say, this was a total disaster. Fortunately, I caught it soon enough before it caused real problems in our practice. But I made the mistake of trusting this person that she was doing her job. instead of following up and getting reports and proving to myself that she actually is doing her job. Now, when I called up her former employer, the dentist who gave such great reviews about her, I told him my story. And then he said, yeah, she did the same thing to me. And I was flabbergasted. I asked him, why in the world would he recommend her? And he said, well, I just wanted to give her another chance. Another thing to keep in mind when you're checking references is that people are worried about being sued. So a lot of times they're not going to tell you not to hire somebody because they just care about themselves. And that's human nature. Number 10 is marketing. Again, here are some of the sharks to watch out for. If someone says it takes a full year of committing to this marketing plan, this marketing program, before you see results, run. Hold on to your money and run away. I'm also not a big fan of these direct mail companies where you pay for this expensive list that has your target market in it, and then they mail direct mail pieces to those people. I went out to lunch with an orthodontist in my area, and I says, hey, I saw your direct mail piece. And he said, what? You're not in my target market. You weren't supposed to get that. Apparently, he wanted people with kids a little older than what my kids were. Something suitable for an orthodontic practice. I asked him how much he spent. He spent $3,000 to hit 3,000 homes. And I guess this isn't too much more than what I've heard people spend. I was kind of shocked, though. I told him that I spent $3,000 and I hit 12,000 homes. And my 12,000 homes that I hit also included the 3,000 that he hit. Now, what's the trick to this? It's called a carrier route with the post office. At the post office, each postal carrier has a route they hit every day. And you can pay 13.9 cents a piece to have your direct mail piece put in every single mailbox. On top of that, you can have your direct mail pieces designed and created for a little over 10 cents. In other words, 25 cents a house is what I generally spend when I'm marketing. We will go over a bunch of other tips in the marketing, so stay tuned. Number 11 is technology. Just relax when it comes to big technology purchases. When you're buying or building, when you're just getting started, you need to prove your income stream first. Don't buy a CEREC machine. Don't buy a cone beam. Don't get an expensive laser. I'm sure I'll get plenty of CEREC lovers who will be saying I'm wrong here. But hold off until you can build up your volume and you have high confidence that the numbers will work out. Number 12 is financing. Understand how banks make their money. There's certain loans you need to stay away from. You don't want to have a loan where your debt actually increases over time. In other words, you don't want to have started your practice and 3 years later owe more than what you borrowed. There's some loans like this out there, so be careful. You also want to try to pay your loan off in 10 years. If the idea of a 15-year loan payment sounds nice to lower your payments, well, let's find some other ways to lower your payments and keep it under 10 years. Number 13 is falling for the one-size-fits-all dogma. There's plenty of people who will say, oh, starting up is the only way to go. They tell of how successful they were and that everyone can do it. You can do it because I did it. I've been very successful starting up a practice in my location. But guess what? A guy 3 miles from me also started up around the same time and he failed. We are scientists. Do not fall for anecdotal stories. We need to be able to cut through the BS and look at the numbers. In some markets, it's best to buy. In some locations, it's best to build. We'll go over that in another video. Well, there you have it. 13 points to know when you're buying or building your practice. Remember, if you're going to buy, build, or refinance a practice, contact us. We'll get you connected with the right people. This is Dental Fire. Don't just finance your practice, pay it off.